Okay.
Good morning. All right, so welcome to our virtual planning committee meeting, and let's start off with the fact that we're already having technical difficulties and our live stream failed this morning, even though that we practiced it 4 times beforehand to make sure it would work. So the live stream has failed. We are recording the meeting, and immediately afterwards we will post it onto YouTube for the public, and we're not really sure what failed on the technology end this morning because we tried repeatedly to be sure we'd be ready for that. We'll figure it out. Apologies to anyone who needed that. So I guess our regular chair, Mary Robeson, is unable to make it today. She had a personal emergency. Our vice chair, Megan Costa, is going to take over and chair this meeting. Before we jump into it, how about if I do a roll call of everybody present by agency, and I can hear, if I name your agency, you can tell me if you're here, and if there's more than one person per agency, you can identify who the voting member is on the call. Thank you. So we'll start with the Regional Planning Board.
I'm here, David Boter.
Thank you. Centro.
Brian Schultz here, voting.
EJ Moses from Centro.
City of Syracuse Administration.
Ed Mueller for Centro too.
Okay, Ed. Did I see Corey on?
Yep, I'm here on behalf of the administration.
Thanks, Corey. And Syracuse Planning. Owen, is he on? Or anyone in his office? No? All right, Syracuse.
Owen's on, he's just muted. Owen, you're muted. There he is.
Hey, Jim.
There you go.
Gotcha.
All right.
All right.
It's working. Thank you.
City of Syracuse DPW. Is Neil back on? I know he was on and dropped off.
I'm here. I got on early, but I'm back.
All right. Welcome, Neil. Empire State Development. Okay. Center State CEO. I think Jared joined.
Yes, Jared Shepard.
New York State DEC. Sorry. New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Trendon? No? Okay. New York State DOT, I think I saw Mark Frechette and at least one or two others.
Yeah, Jim, I'm on. I think Dave Roth is also on.
Yes, I'm on.
I did. New York State Thruway Authority.
I'm on, Jen George.
Welcome. Onondaga County DOT. Marty, Tim, Chris, Odine, anybody? No? Okay. Onondaga County Legislature, I believe Casey's on board, right?
Yep, here.
And Syracuse Onondaga County Planning, I think Megan Costa is acting as our chair. All right, Megan, it's your meeting to chair.
Okay, wish me luck. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda, folks?
None have come my way.
Okay. Hearing none, let's go to approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion?
Central moves.
Who was that?
Sorry.
The second. Sorry. The second on the motion? Anyone?
Need someone to second it. David seconded. Thank you.
Okay, and then I'll just do a cattle call for a vote. All in favor of accepting the minutes from the last November meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? All right, hearing none, that is passed. So going on to communications and reports, I'll turn it over to Jim.
UPWP status report. I'll just highlight quickly a couple of things. We have a very long agenda today. For those of you who don't know, SMTC opened back up in mid-June. We're working with staff in a mixed hybrid model, some in the office and some at home. On any given day, we have about 1/3 of the folks in the office. We've lost our administrative assistant, Tricia Wortley, who many of you have known over the years. She's been replaced by Laura Irvine, who is joined on this call here taking the minutes. Tricia Wortley has moved on to be the business manager for the Central New York Regional Planning and Development Board. We missed our last scheduled meeting because of everything else going on in the world, so it's a very long agenda today. We have several projects to present to you today: the long-range transportation plan, Getty's and Fayette study, regional transportation study for the market, bridge and pavement study, City of Syracuse pavement prioritization, City of Syracuse sidewalk assessment, Cicero Route 11 study, and an Onondaga County safety assessment. Additionally, several scopes of work were approved by this committee via mail earlier in the summertime. We have tried to transition to an entirely virtual public involvement, which prior to today has worked flawlessly, but of course today our live stream decided to fail. We will figure that one out. In terms of federal transportation legislation, as you may have observed, Washington is not an entirely happy place right now with everybody. So we are going to probably go without a transportation bill in the near future and not have one renewed for a while. Hopefully there will be continuing resolutions to bridge the gap, but right now we do not know the answer to that. In terms of data collection, we have interns and staff doing field work in the field for a variety of data collection efforts. We are not doing traditional traffic counts because travel patterns are off the norm and they would not be necessarily useful or fruitful. One unique project we're doing is sidewalk data collection for the City of Syracuse, where we broke the City of Syracuse down into quadrants at their request, and through a series of technology creations of staff here, we have a combination of GPS units and iPads and custom data entry screens and staffs. I have several staff walking around the City of Syracuse doing a pilot project rating Syracuse sidewalks for the city to see if the process will work. We finished 3 or 4 sectors of the city as a pilot project that we'll be turning over to them shortly to decide if they want to take this on to a larger scale themselves or to go forward with it. It actually, I questioned whether it would be practical, but it turned out to be to work out really rather nicely and yield some good data. And the staff has a process pretty well nailed down for it. So hopefully the city will find that useful. In terms of geographic information systems, we're working on a lot of work for the Empire State Trail, and as well as the city sidewalks that I mentioned. For bike and ped planning, we have final delivery of our 2020 bike map. We sold out of the last one, even though it's free, but we went through over 20,000 of our last copies after a couple of prints. We have 10,000 of the 2020 version in-house here. If you'd like any sent to your agency or anyone you know, please just drop me an email or you can mention today's meeting in the minutes, and I will be sure that you or your agency gets as many copies as you want for the bike map. They are these small pocket-sized ones. They are water resistant, so you can keep them in your pocket when you're driving around on your bike. For bridge and pavement condition management system, in addition to the regular report being presented today, we have staff out there rating pavement for the city and the county this summer. For the joint traffic management center co-location project, that's one we have not been able to make a lot of progress on this program year with everything going on. That's one that just took a back seat. We have, however, been working with the city to provide technical assistance to their team as they're trying to get their individual TMC up and running through a consultant basis with an RFP. We have worked with them as part of their consultant selection process and providing guidance along the way. For the DOME Traffic Management and Event Strategic Plan, which is a large consultant-based study that is going to be looking at how to access the former carrier dome in light of the new traffic patterns likely from I-81's construction. That RFP has been written and has been posted in the New York State Contract Reporter. So we're looking to get responses to that RFP and a contract on board and kicked off before the end of the calendar year, and we expect that to occur. In terms of scope of work that have been approved, we've approved the Tuscarora Road corridor study, the Mattydale Route 11 study, and the Village of Skaneateles pedestrian safety and access study. We are close to approval on the the Manlius Village Center study. That scope is should be done this month and go out for a mail vote in September. The Syracuse school loading project we put on hold in light of everything going on with schools. We just realized this can't be a priority for them right now, so we are putting that on hold until a time that is more appropriate for us to interact with the school and take away their valuable staff time for everything else they have going on right now. In its place, we've moved forward the Syracuse residential parking permit study, and we are scoping that project as we speak. Our travel demand model has been updated extensively for the long-range transportation plan. And I want to remind everyone on the call, if you have any use for testing it for any possible economic development or transportation projects, please let us know. It is a very good computer model that is ready to go. In terms of the tip, we were worried that with everything going on with COVID-19 that we wouldn't be able to have as many projects obligated as normal. But at our last capital projects committee, it seemed that most of the projects were able to stay on schedule, and we should have a significant percentage of projects meeting the obligation. Maybe not a normal near 100%, but a lot more than we expected in light of the situation we have. So that's a quick status report on a few items. I can answer any questions on specific projects anyone might have. Hearing none. Megan, back to you.
All right, moving on to item B, update on the I-81 Viaduct Project from New York State DOT. Turn it over to Mark, I presume.
Yep.
Thanks, Megan. I'll be brief this morning. Just start by stating that last year was a pretty big year for the 81 project in 2019 with the open house and DOT recommending the community grid as our preferred alternative. Just to remind everybody, probably the big thing related to the community grid was the creation of the Business Loop 81 concept as part of the community grid, which maintains a freeway north of the city and south of the city, high speed, 65 miles per hour. We ended up having last year 11 neighborhood meetings and 4 noise wall meetings. In addition to multiple stakeholder meetings, we received well over 1,000 comments last year. And every comment that we receive is taken into consideration and responded to in the draft environmental impact statement. One of the big comments that we always hear about is related to jobs, and the city just hosted the big table meeting on jobs last Thursday night. I thought it was extremely successful, and we look forward to partnering with the city on the whole jobs initiative. Included in listening to what people have to say is typically requires additional engineering and environmental analysis that needs to be done as part of the process. And really the goal is to improve and refine the build solutions, both the community grid and the viaduct alternative, long before you get to the construction phases. DOT had completed the revision of our draft environmental impact statement, taking into account all of the all of the comments that we received in 2019. In July of this year, the summer, we provided the draft environmental impact statement to our partners, Federal Highway Administration, who needs to sign off on that document prior to DOT releasing that to the public. So that was done in mid-July, and we don't know at this point in time if what comments they've had, and we'll need to build consensus with them when they get back to DOT. Once we work out the issues associated with the federal government in Albany, then it goes to headquarters in Washington, D.C. for a legal sufficiency review, and need to get their blessing also. Recently, FHWA and the Department of Transportation set up a committee to discuss how we could hold a public hearing. We cannot release the DEIS document to the public without holding a public hearing. And typically the time frame associated with the release of the DEIS gives the public 45 to 60 days to provide public comments back to the department. So it's our goal to have that public hearing within a couple weeks of releasing the document. And of course, it's difficult to figure out how we would do that in a virtual arena. When we had the open house, we had well over 900 people from the public attend. And not sure how we would do that with the COVID restrictions that we have. Interesting enough, this week, Maryland hosted a public hearing that on a $8 to $10 billion project. It's a expansion of an expressway down in Maryland. And all they did was they read a 5-minute legal notice, and then they opened it up for comment, and the public could make comments. Of course, they released the DEIS. So I thought that was interesting. That's a lot easier to do than hosting a public meeting where there's a lot of give and take and educational components of that. That's the first one I've seen under the COVID restrictions. I think there's a lot of value in engaging the community. As you know, in New York State, related to this project, we hold public meetings, but then we follow up with neighborhood meetings, get into the communities to really help to educate about the project, because it is a complicated project, but also to listen to what the concerns are so that we can address those concerns. So the next couple months is really about trying to build that consensus with our federal partners. DOT looks forward to engaging the community when we can release that DEIS and host that public hearing. I'd be happy to take any questions or try to answer anything anybody has.
I have kind of a general question. It seems to me that we're doing an awful lot of initiatives relating to the I-81 project, the impact that the grid would have on bus traffic going in and out of schools, things of that sort. But at this point, a final decision hasn't really, I know the states have come up with a preferred option, but a final decision hasn't been made yet. So in his analyses, are they doing the analysis to incorporate either solution, or maybe 3 solutions, which would be the community grid, a rebuilt viaduct, or just rebuilding what is already there?
Yeah, so what's remaining on the table is 3 alternatives. One, the do nothing, which is really a maintenance alternative, similar to what we've done the last 10, 15 years to maintain the operations of the system. There are 2 build alternatives that's included in that, and they are full analysis of the build alternatives and full analysis of the do nothing. So you're absolutely correct. The community grid is a recommended alternative from DOT. It is not, we're not at the point where and we won't be to that point to the record of decision. So we're a couple steps before, more than a couple steps before that to actually get to the preferred alternative. And it's at that point in time, the record of decision, that you can actually start taking the, acquiring the property and start going out to construction. So the viaduct does remain a viable build alternative. From DOT's perspective, we just believe the community grid is a better alternative than the viaduct.
Well, are we kind of putting the cart before the horse, though? We seem to be doing a lot of analysis that's taking into consideration the 3 options. Is there some reason why we have to do that now instead of waiting until a final decision is made?
Well, I think the analysis points to the differences between the different alternatives, and they are quite different. Really, all 3 of them are quite different. So if you take a look at the preliminary DEIS that DOT released in April, Those three were still included in that document. What we've done to date is really expand on all the things that we heard back in 2019. So an example of that was there was a lot of concern related to the economic components of the community grid project. There was an economic analysis for both the community grid and the viaduct included in that preliminary DEIS, but we were asked to expand on that because people were concerned about moving traffic from 81 over to 481, and what would that mean to businesses along those corridors. So those are the new things that are part of the DEIS today that we're going through and working out consensus with our federal partners.
All right, but I think recently, at our last meeting, we approved monies to do an analysis of the impact that the community grid would have on sort of bus traffic going in and out of schools that are nearby, kind of where the community grid would be. And again, I guess it seems like we're kind of putting the cart before the horse, doing an analysis of the impact that the community grid would have on bus traffic or traffic, picking kids up or dropping kids off as a result of the community grid option. But that final decision hasn't been made yet, so I'm not really sure why we're doing those types of analyses now when a final decision really hasn't been made. I understand that you want to look at the various economic impacts or financial impacts based upon the different alternatives, but it seems like we're kind of going beyond that and then doing further analysis and putting other projects out for bid that relate to it but aren't really part of the overall analysis. At least it wouldn't seem to be to me. I mean, again, why we need to do analysis of the impact on traffic in and out of a school as a result of the community grid when we haven't made that decision yet, it seems a bit premature to me.
Yeah, just on the traffic part, and I don't know if you're referring to the MLK school or not, but on the traffic, we did traffic analysis of all the impacts, and it's pretty common for us to do any build analysis to understand what the implications are associated with managing the traffic. So under the community grid, where we're eliminating the I-81 viaduct and putting the majority of traffic down onto the grid system, we need to understand what that means at every intersection and at every corridor. So there's been substantial traffic analysis that's been done associated with the community grid to know if we needed to put in a right turn lane, if we needed to put in a left turn lane, how do we handle the traffic signal timing? Will it bog down the traffic? Because we're distributing the traffic under the community grid. Doesn't mean that we don't do similar traffic analysis as part of the viaduct alternative, because we do. We look at the Harrison and Adams off-ramp, and everybody knows how that, this morning it backed up on 690 and 81 because people couldn't get off the exits. And so those analyses are done to make the alternatives better. Do we need to have 2 lanes off from an off-ramp or more than 2 lanes coming onto an off-ramp? So all of that traffic analysis is also done to create what the engineering is necessary for the transportation system to be able to handle that alternative. So as it relates to schools, the only thing that we've looked at related to the school district is MLK, and it's not at the school bus level. It was at the how much traffic volume is going to be on the MLK corridor as a result of the elimination of the interstate as part of the community grid.
Mm-hmm. All right. All right.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. All right, hearing nothing else, we'll go on to old business, which I assume there is none, right, Jim?
That's correct.
All right, so then we're on to new business. First item is long-range transportation plan. I assume I'm giving that to Megan. We're going to go through each one of these quickly and do a roll call to vote on each item as we go. So,
so first up, we have the look for the Planning Committee to recommend that the Policy Committee approve the 2050 Long-Range Transportation Plan update. SMTC completed the required 5-year update. It's required by FHWA and FTA. So for every 5 years, the full document was available on our website for people to review and for public comment, as well as for our member agencies to review. A summary was sent out with the packet for today. Megan Vitale will give a brief presentation, 10-ish plus minutes. Unlike the other presentations, hers will be live, so you can interrupt her if necessary, and she can address you. The other presentations will be recorded for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then hold the Q&A for the end. But this one's a little bit longer, a little bit more involved, so feel free to interrupt her if it's important, and she can stop her presentation and address your questions. Megan, it's up to you.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to share my screen here. So you should all be seeing the PowerPoint slide now. Sorry, Jim, did you say something?
Correct.
Okay, we're good. All right. So we are, we're undertaking an update to our long-range transportation plan. Our current plan was approved in 2015. And that was our first entirely new plan since 1995, although we had produced updates in between. But the plan we adopted in 2015 had an entirely new set of goals and objectives and emphasized the performance-based planning requirements of the federal guidance, and included a system performance report based on our best knowledge of the requirements for the performance-based planning at that time. Also, many of you are aware, we published the Transportation Atlas in 2015 as a companion to our LRTP. So federal regulations require that we update our LRTP every 5 years. Since the FAST Act was signed in December of 2015, multiple federal rulemakings have been issued that specify requirements for the performance measures and for the system performance report component of the LRTP. So those specific rulemakings were not all available in the 2014 timeframe when we were working on our long-range plan. So we have updated in the current plan the system performance report to match those new federal rulemakings. We've adopted multiple resolutions. You have all been at those meetings where we have supported the state DOT and Centro's performance measures. So those are all reflected in the updated plan. We also reviewed additional regional and municipal plans that have been released since 2015 and incorporated that information and recommendations from more recent SMTC studies into the plan update as well, and reviewed demographic and economic conditions as necessary. So the FAST Act articulates 7 national goals for the transportation system. These haven't changed since MAP 21. The SMTC itself, we don't build anything, so the reduced project delivery delays goal doesn't really apply to our long-range plan, but the other 6 goals are addressed in our plan. They act as the primary organizing element of the plan, and that remains unchanged in this draft update. In 2015, we looked as we were working on the 2015 plan, we reviewed numerous regional municipal plans to create this list of objectives. So within the framework of those national goals, we crafted objectives that both speak to the federal requirements and to our local and regional planning visions. So for this update, we reviewed and updated, updated and new plans that had been published since 2015 and compared those to the existing objectives. The study advisory committee for this LRTP update agreed that, by and large, the goals and objectives should remain as written in 2015, with some minor modifications to reflect changes in the federal performance management requirements. The goals and objectives, along with regionally significant projects, are described in Chapter 2 of the plan update. And I should note the draft plan is up on our website. Hopefully some people have taken a look at that already. So 4 regionally significant projects were identified in the 2015 LRTP, and these remain in the update. We've updated the text of the plan to reflect changes since 2015. So things change quickly. At the time that we put the updated draft up on our website, we did not know that the final DEIS would be available yet. So our LRTP update for I-81 reflects the PDEIS and draft design report that were available. It also reflects changes since 2015 regarding enhanced transit, specifically that we have completed the SMART study, which identified BRT and mixed traffic as the locally preferred alternative. We've updated the discussion of the regional trail network to account for expansion since 2015, particularly the Empire State Trail. And an inland port was also identified as a regionally significant project, but the draft update reflects the current plans for the DeWitt rail yard. Chapter 3 of the LRTP includes demographic and economic data for our region. Much of the data in the 2015 plan and the atlas came from the 2010 decennial census. Of course, the 2020 census, is taking place right now, so we don't have new decennial data yet, but we did look at the most current 5-year ACS population estimates and compared that to the 2010 decennial number, and we see that there has been virtually no change in our total population, and that a variety of other key indicators are all within a few percentage points of the data reported in 2010. Where newer data were available, we did update in Chapter 3 some demographic and economic data. We also pointed out some new employment centers that are proposed or coming online since 2015, and added a section addressing travel and tourism, which was a new federal requirement. Chapter 4 of the LRTP includes a description of the transportation system, and this is where the system performance report lives within the document. The new system performance report addresses all of the federally required performance measures that were defined since 2015, and they're identified in individual tables throughout Chapter 4, rather than in the previous plan being all summarized in one table at the end of that chapter. There's just an example on that slide. Chapter 5 of the plan is a future conditions assessment. This includes modeling results that we looked at our future projects list and used our model to do some analysis, but this also includes a new section on emerging technology. When we were conducting outreach for the original 2015 plan, we received a lot of questions about how emerging technology would impact transportation planning. And at that time, especially, there were still so many unanswered questions. And our focus 5 years ago was really on creating those new goals and objectives and identifying those regionally significant projects. So we only briefly touched on this emerging technology area back in 2015. But the updated LRTP includes a new section within Chapter 5 that describes many of these emerging technologies and identifies relevant policy considerations such as accessibility, data management, and impacts to vehicle miles traveled. So that's a whole new section. We think a big improvement to our plan. Of course, a big part of our plan is the future projects and the financial analysis. The list of projects has been updated for the short term, which is the first 5 years of our long-range plan. The list is consistent with the current TIP. For the next 10 years, so those midterm years of our plan, we worked with State DOT, County DOT, City of Syracuse, and Centro to develop the list of projects. I should note, as always, inclusion in the financial plan within the long-range plan does not guarantee that a project will be funded in the future. Projects still need to compete in the TIP process, but our LRTP attempts to articulate a vision for the future. One thing to note is this idea of maintenance. In 2015, we defined this as any project that doesn't increase the capacity of the system. And we've maintained that framework in this long-range plan. But the 2015 plan lumped all maintenance together by category and only listed individually those projects that were considered non-maintenance within the financial plan. We did feel that this gives an undue importance to those non-maintenance projects when, in reality, many of the largest projects in our region are just maintaining the system we have. So for this long-range plan update, we have listed large maintenance projects, those with a construction phase over $3 million. Those are listed individually, and we feel this gives a more accurate picture of the importance of those maintenance projects to our region. So this chart shows the project costs by category. The plan update anticipates project costs over the entire length of the plan, including both highways and transit projects, to total about $3.27 billion. About 66% of that total for highway system maintenance, including bridges and TSMO related projects, about 12% for transit maintenance, and only about 21% for non-maintenance projects. This table shows the fiscal constraint analysis for the long-range plan. Total anticipated revenue is about $3.3 billion compared to the total project cost of $3.27. So that $24.6 million remaining, I hate to call it a surplus, it's really only 1% of those total anticipated revenues. So that shows that we're within our fiscal constraint and anticipating using the vast majority of those revenues. However, we also have some additional projects that we are acknowledging as illustrative projects. These are projects that are desired, but are not included in the financial plan because a funding source has not been identified. This is the same list of projects that is currently identified in the long-range plan, so this hasn't changed with the update, but we do have more recent financial information for these projects, but again, still do not have an identified funding source. We have also maintained, or should say retained, the list of projects that are not included in the plan. The 4 bullet points listed here, these are projects that have been discussed in the community, but generally previous studies have found to have relatively minimal benefit for a very high cost, and therefore these are explicitly not included in our long-range plan. We want to point out that a lot of the work we do in any given year yields public involvement that is incorporated into our overall long-range planning process. So some notable projects with significant public involvement in the past 5 years have included the SMART study, the Centro surveys, and the WorkLink study, as well as numerous other corridor studies, bike and ped studies, sub-area studies. This builds on the public outreach originally conducted in 2015 that included multiple public meetings around the region and a survey pertaining to the LRTP goals and objectives. We also conducted additional outreach specific to this update. Since we were unable to hold in-person public meetings this past spring, we created an LRTP newsletter highlighting key elements of the LRTP update process that was mailed to over 4,000 addresses and emailed to over 500 addresses. The goals and objectives were available for review on our website. And we also used an online financial simulation tool that allowed people to provide feedback on spending categories within the financial plan and respond to a few specific questions, such as including completion of the city's bike plan and the BRT system. So what's next? The draft document is available for public review on our website. Notification letters were mailed to a variety of agencies, including our environmental and other transportation contacts. Comments are due by September 2nd, and we have received 2 so far. We also have a narrated presentation on our YouTube channel. Similar slides to these ones I've talked through today, but some additional ones as well, and more explanation of who we are as an agency and the overall long-range plan process, since it's geared more towards the public. That's linked on our website, and the plan must be adopted by the policy committee before the end of September. So that's it, and I think defaults back to me now. So if there's any questions, I can try to answer those.
Hey, Megan, this is Carlos. I don't have any questions, but I just want to thank you for all the work, because I know we went back and forth with a few questions and concerns, and you guys addressed them and had several calls. So I appreciate that, Megan, very much.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we appreciate the feedback. So it you know, encourages us to keep improving.
Thank you.
Megan, I did have a question. Under the, I guess, sort of midterm or whatever, midterm projects, you list street improvements to the Caudney Road, Route 31 intersection being done between 2025 and 2034. But I know that, well, there's been some discussion that we may have somebody interested in there. I mean, you know, this is kind of a pet project of mine since I've been in the legislature. We're pushing this for literally 16 years to try to get somebody into White Pines. And one of the stumbling blocks that I've been told is that it's not been shovel ready, that, you know, we don't have utilities readily accessible. And then, yeah, obviously changes to the intersection. And actually, the legislature approved money for changes to the intersection probably 2 or 3 years ago. And so I guess I'm a little bit concerned that this project is 5 or more years out instead of it being a more short-term project, given the fact that we really need to have that shovel ready in order to land an employer.
Well, the projects that are listed as short-term are the ones that appear on our current transportation improvement program, which means they've been given funding and are listed for construction in the next 5 years and have planned project phases. And the ones that we know are imminent but do not have that yet. I think that those are probably in the midterm. Now, those can be shifted forward if there is a project sponsor wants to move funding around and have a project reprioritized closer, or postpone an existing project and do some swapping. That is possible. But right now, to the best of our knowledge, those projects do not appear on the capital programs for the next 5 years. Certainly not with federal funds, at least.
So I'm sorry, I want to clarify though, that there is a short-term listed project that I think is the project that you're referencing that the county approved funds for, because there is on the short-term projects list, there's a Caudney Road Route 31 improvements for 4.12 million. And I believe that came directly from the county's capital program. There's an additional project in the midterm that specifically states that's related to White Pines. So I'd have to talk to county DOT to figure out the difference precisely in those two projects. But I believe there is, the project you're referring to is in the short term. And then there's additional in the midterm.
So do you know what exactly they're referring to for the midterm project? What improvements they're talking about?
I don't off the top of my head, and a lot of the midterm projects just don't have that level of detail yet. Again, they're kind of the vision, what we anticipate, and again, it's not a capital program. You know, that's the tip, and that's just a 5-year program. This is more of the long range vision.
All right. I did have another question. So again, under your short-term projects, you list a bridge rehab to the I-81 ramp for Hiawatha Boulevard and County Route 137, and you again list Hiawatha Boulevard over I-81 rehab. So is one just the ramp? Because you're listing both as bridge categories, but it almost seems like it's referring almost to the same thing. But they're both bridge projects at the Hiawatha exit off of 81. I'm not sure why it's listed twice. Maybe you can just explain that.
These are both on the short-term list, so they
Right.
should both be on the tip. I am not certain of the difference between those two. Maybe Mario or someone from State DOT could add clarification, or I can look into that and get back to you.
Those are two State DOT projects. I don't know if Mark or someone else from State DOT on the line would want to take that question or not.
Yeah, I know this is Mark. I know the one bridge is the flyover bridge, and it's actually broken up into 2 or 3 bridges that daylights at Hiawatha. And I think that description, I know the project is a bridge rehab. We've had a number of issues with the deck there. So we haven't started working on that project yet, but my thought is that it'll either be a deck replacement or that we would do a deck rehabilitation type project. But it's really those flyover bridges right out front of Destiny that are included in that those 2 projects.
You think they're listed separately because they're actually kind of separate bridges? Is that it?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Before we take any other questions or go to a motion, I just want to acknowledge that Onondaga County DOT and Empire State Development, I believe, have joined the call since the initial roll call at the beginning. Is that correct? I believe Odine from Onondaga County DOT is on the line.
Chris Robert, Onondaga County.
Chris Robert, okay, great. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Hey, Chris, I had asked a question previously. I don't know if you were on the call at that point or not. Relative to in the midterm projects, they list the White Pines Industrial Park. You know, I'm not sure what improvements you're referring to in the midterm projects list versus the short-term street improvements to that intersection.
Yeah, I don't have those tables in front of me, but I know we're anticipating that project, the Cotnoy Road Route 31 improvements to be a short-term project, and I think we put like a little over $4 million. That was the last estimate that was done, some years ago now. So we'd have to even look at that. But so we envision that as a short-term project. It's just a matter of us getting word from economic development that they want us to proceed with that project. Just because I know they're looking at different options for the site, and certainly traffic could be, the traffic volumes generated could be affected by who actually goes in there and what type of development it is. So, I think there's been some discussion quite some time ago that we would hold this project until a developer was identified. But certainly, if you had concerns with that approach, it might be something that we should all discuss with economic development and see where we could prioritize the project. But just so you know, we do have the design funds available in our budget now, local funds. It's not a federally funded project to advance the design of that project. I believe there's some right-of-way takings that are necessary. And then at some point, I think we have to go back to the legislature to fund the construction of that project.
Right. But like I said, in the short-term list, they have the Cotnoy Road Route 31 intersection at $4.1 million listed. And then under the midterm projects, they list White Pines development improvements to Cotnoy Road for the intersection for roughly $5.5 million. So it's listing 2 different amounts but kind of seemingly referencing the same thing. And there was some comment earlier that perhaps we were talking about different scopes or different work to be done, but didn't have really an answer as to what the differences were. But it sounds to me like you didn't really have an answer to that either.
Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll revisit that with Megan after the call here and find out why we put money in the midterm, because I believe it all should be in the short term. But we can look at that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great. Any other questions for the LRTP for Megan? All right.
Okay, hearing none, I guess we will, so we're okay to go ahead even if there's a change in that table. Go ahead and vote anyways.
Yeah, if there's any changes that come, we'll make them before it's presented to the policy committee, and we'll call it out as a change.
Gotcha. All right, so any more discussion from anyone on this item? Okay, so I guess I'll go all in favor, say aye.
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 Any noes? Okay, hearing none, this item has passed. Moving on to tip amendments.
Sure. Okay, we have 2 tip amendments. They are both new additions to the program, and they are both new monies brought into the SMTC area by New York State DOT. So they are 2 paving projects by New York State DOT. The first is for Route 20 from the Lafayette-Pompey line to Madison County line. We're looking at approximately 1.7 of NHPP funds for construction and inspection, and 468,000 of state dedicated funds. Second project is Route 31, another paving project from Baldwinsville line to the Belgian Bridge, again, New York State DOT. We're looking at approximately 580 NHPP federal funds and 160,000 state dedicated funds. Mark Frechette is on for the state to answer any questions you might have about these 2 projects. They do not impact our program in a negative way because they only bring in additional money to our program, so no offsets are necessary from existing projects. Any questions for Mark?
So Jim, I would just add that we don't always know where the conditions are going to deteriorate quicker than we would like them to. So we felt that it was necessary to jump on this now to get this done. It won't be constructed this year. It'll be constructed next year. But these are 2 pretty good traffic volume roads that we want to just, it's a simplified paving project to add a little bit of shoring and leveling and then a top course. So it's just putting down paving. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions from anybody? All right, Megan, we need the recommendation for the
So would anybody like to make a motion to accept the tip amendments?
Move it.
Second?
Chris Roper.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, any noes? All right, motion passed. Should I have done a motion for the LRTP? We need to revisit that or no?
No, the way you did it is fine.
Okay. Okay, so Geddes and Fayette streets complete street review.
Sure. For the next several projects, what we have is our brief 4 to 5 minute recorded PowerPoint presentations where I'm going to ask people to hold their question and answer until the end of each presentation. Then the person who did the project will be available to answer any questions you have, just to expedite the process. This also holds the presentations to under 5 minutes because I got to have them recorded and forced to be under 5 minutes to minimize the amount of time you guys have to watch them. So the first project here is the Geddes Fayette Street project. As part of the 1819 and 1920 UPWPs, SMTC agreed by the City of Syracuse to identify opportunities to add and improve bicycle, pedestrian, and transit facilities along the corridor. A presentation put together by Danielle Kroll and narrated accordingly is ready to be shared. Mario, can you do that?
Hello, my name is Danielle Kroll, and I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the South Geddes and West Fayette Streets Complete Streets Review Project. As part of the SMTC's Unified Planning Work Program, the City of Syracuse asked us to help identify opportunities to add and improve bike, pedestrian, and transit facilities within the existing right-of-way on both South Geddes and West Fayette Streets. The study area for the project included South Geddes Street between Erie Boulevard West and Bellevue Avenue, and West Fayette Street from Tompkins Street in the west to Walton Street in the east. For this project, we gathered the existing conditions noted on the slide, including traffic and queuing counts on South Geddes Street, as well as parking counts along both corridors. All of the existing conditions data was summarized and analyzed in the draft report. We also developed some initial concepts and design ideas for making improvements to both corridors. SMTC staff conducted this study with the advice and assistance of a study advisory committee, which met 4 times over the course of the study. The SAC included the City of Syracuse, their Planning, Engineering, and Operations departments, and the Onondaga County Health Department. One public input session was held for the project in February 2020. Most of the public comments received through the meeting acknowledged a need for improved pedestrian access and facilities, as well as a desire for bike accommodations. The desire for formalized parking along the western end of West Fayette Street was also noted. The SMTC developed general recommendations that can be implemented to improve the overall active transportation experience within these corridors. These include transit-friendly features, such as large concrete landing pads and benches, which are recommended for bus stops with the highest ridership in the corridor. These are noted on the slide. Pedestrian recommendations for the entire corridor include bringing all sidewalks, crosswalks, and curb ramps into ADA compliance and city codes compliance. The city should also consider adding rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which are used to supplement pedestrian warning signs at uncontrolled intersections or mid-block crossings, to crosswalks on South Geddes Street at Marcellus, Fitch, and Roland Streets, and West Fayette Street with Magnolia and Seneca or Tioga Streets. Specific study recommendations include either a side path on the west side of South Geddes Street or a road diet on South Geddes Street so that bike lanes can be added. A side path would accommodate both bicyclists and pedestrians. A road diet would continue to accommodate pedestrians on both sides of Geddes Street and provide on-road bicycle facilities for cyclists. The SMTC prepared section elevation concept drawings of what bike lanes or a shared use path could look like on South Geddes Street between West Fayette Street and Erie Boulevard West. There were 2 options for bike lanes. One widens the sidewalk to 5 feet on each side with a 6-foot bike lane. The other leaves the existing 4-foot sidewalk and adds a bike lane with a buffer. The side path option includes a raised 10-foot shared use path, and this was the option preferred by the public. On West Fayette Street, formalized parking on the western end of the corridor is recommended, along with improved sidewalks. Public input suggests a preference for the option shown here that adds formalized parking to both sides of West Fayette Street, as well as a 6-foot sidewalk to the south side of the street. We also developed a walkway enhancement concept for under the railroad bridge on Fayette Street, located west of Geddes Street.
We can't wait to see
Through this study, it was also clear that a multi-use trail linking Lipe Art Park to the west side of South Geddes Street is highly desired by the public and would make a great addition to these neighborhoods.
We know that you will change the
This concludes the brief presentation of the South Geddes and West Fayette Streets Complete Streets Review project. Thank you.
So from Paul to all of you, we just want to say,
I'm not sure.
to the team.
Someone might need to be muted there. Okay. All right. Thank you, Danielle. Any questions for Danielle on that study? Okay. All right, so Megan, do you recommend that the Planning Committee recommend the Policy Committee acknowledge that as complete?
Cool. Can I get a motion on the Geddes Fayette complete street review?
Well, I'll motion that.
Yeah.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Hearing none, motion approved. All right, moving on to Regional Transportation Center Market Area Access Study.
All right, so again, this was a study that lasted a little more than a year. The SMTC identified 4 intersections for improvements on the north side residents for walking and biking in and around the regional market in Destiny, USA. It also identifies higher level options to connect to existing trails. Again, we have about a 5-minute presentation. It's going to be narrated by not the project manager, but by Andrew Frazier. But the project manager, Mike Alexander, will be on to answer questions and answers after the presentation. Marion, why don't you start that up?
Hello, everyone. This is a presentation on the SMTC's RTC Market Area Mobility Study. The Market Area Mobility Study was proposed by the City of Syracuse to identify where most north side residents walk or bike across Hiawatha Boulevard to access the market for groceries. This study identifies bicycle and pedestrian improvement concept plans for priority crossing locations. SMTC also identified big picture ideas to link to places like Destiny, USA, a major employment center, and to surrounding trail networks. This cursory assessment will help inform upcoming LWRP and Loop the Lake planning efforts. The planning process involved extensive public outreach. Nearly 100 people attended community meetings or visited the information booths we staffed at the market. People echoed the need to develop a robust walkway and bikeway network to, through, and around the market. We also learned that people prefer wide sidewalks and pathways to carry groceries on foot or bike, and to allow for side-by-side travel with families. In talking with the Refugee Resettlement Service team, we learned that many refugee residents commute to this area via bike during evening hours to work late-night shifts at the mall or at locations in Salina. So, people discussed the need for lighting and snow removal to accommodate these commutes. Safety and security needs were also common themes. As a part of our assessment, SMTC inventoried existing sidewalks and made note of worn paths due to high foot traffic. We assessed crashes and noted bicycle and pedestrian as well as fatal and serious injury crash locations. We assessed approximate right-of-way width to inform about the potential for on- and off-road facility options. We measured all roadways and noted lane and shoulder widths. We had several staff observe where people crossed the road on Thursday and Saturday during the market's busiest hours. We discovered that most walkers and bikers choose to cross Hiawatha along the south side of Carbon Street or along the north side of Park Street. We identified 4 priority intersections for concept plans. As mentioned, people cross along the north side of Park Street at Hiawatha. It is 5 lanes wide at this location, plus a 10-foot wide center median. Using Centro, we determined that you could reduce the southbound left, through, and right lanes into a single lane for all movements. Likewise, the number of eastbound and westbound lanes may be reduced. The configuration of northbound lanes are necessary to accommodate higher traffic volumes. We use this information to develop our concept plans. Again, here's what the intersection looks like today. Option A includes a single southbound lane for all movements, plus new sidewalks, crosswalks, curb cuts, and shared lane markings. In addition, Option B also narrows Park Street by combining some lanes on both the eastbound and westbound approaches. This allows a portion of Park Street to be repurposed as an off-road path similar to the Creek Walk. We also explored extending Carbon Street into the market where it currently exists as a gravel road. Most people cross at this location. Because it is undeveloped, there is sufficient space to accommodate on- or off-road facilities. This concept plan shows how you can connect an off-road pathway to the Park Street pathway. The land for the road extension is owned by the Market Authority. We spoke with the market's director at the time and incorporated his ideas into this concept to address several of his concerns. Hiawatha Boulevard north of Carbon is wide enough to accommodate bike lanes as shown at the Tex Simone intersection. We also looked at Park Street at NBT Bank Parkway and Harborside Drive. This image looks north. The intersection exists under the I-81 bridge, and you can see the CSX Railroad Bridge in the background. The footprint of existing supports pose unique design challenges at this location. This is the same intersection, but looking south. Here we show the extension of the off-road pathway along Park Street and how it could connect across Harborside Drive to Destiny USA. The remaining approaches would include sidewalk and crosswalk improvements. As mentioned in the report, it may be possible to extend the pathway north to the CSX bridge around the I-81 bridge abutments, but connecting it under the narrow railroad bridge requires additional assessment beyond the scope of this study. An abandoned bikeway exists on the opposite side of the bridge, and the new sidewalks were also recently installed at this location as well. As mentioned, the report also describes potential ways to connect to Destiny USA, the abandoned bikeway north of the railroad bridge, the Loop the Lake Trail, the Bear Trap Creek Trail, and Bike Route 11. These ideas will help inform future LWRP and Loop the Lake planning efforts. At this point, I welcome any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions? I would add just a big thank you to Mike and the team for taking this on. I think it generated some really good ideas and discussion amongst the folks on the SAC. Really looking to work towards implementation of some of these ideas. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to back up Megan's comments there. This one's already proven very popular, and it hasn't been formally released yet. So it's created a good bit of buzz on the city side, especially with the public reaching out to us about it as part of Mike and the team's extensive public outreach.
Great. Glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. There are no other comments. Can I take a motion on the RTC access study?
I'll
make a motion.
I'll back up on and second it.
Sounds good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Hearing none, motion passed. Moving on to bridge and pavement condition management system item.
Yeah, this is our annual report that we do. That kind of inventories the state of affairs in terms of bridge and pavement conditions. The goal is this is a recurring work item and utilizes GIS as well as a variety of field work and other data. Andrew Fraser put together a 5-minute recorded presentation for this as well, followed by a Q&A and some comments. Go ahead.
Hello everyone, this is Andrew Fraser providing a review of this past UPWP year's Bridge and Pavement Condition Management System report. So, as many of you know, this is one of the SMTC's yearly reports, and with it come a number of report goals, such as collecting scores on federal aid-eligible roads and applicable roadway bridges, storing data for easy access by MPO and member agency staff, justifying the large portion of TIP funds going to bridge and pavement projects, and to help prioritize our investments so we get our proverbial best bang for our buck. As a side note, all the data in this report, unless otherwise noted, is from 2018 and 2019. So let's hop right in with bridges. Bridges are rated on a scale of good, fair, poor, based on federal performance measures. These are made up of individual metrics from the National Bridge Inventory, items 68, 69, 60, and 62, which are deck, superstructure, substructure, and culvert, respectively. It's important to think of these ratings in terms of deck area instead of number of structures. As this table on the right shows, NYSDOT may only own 57% of bridge structures in our MPA, but they own 80% of all the deck area. The chart at the bottom gives our MPA bridge ratings by deck area: 21% good, 69% fair, and 10% poor. Here's a screenshot of a couple maps available in the report. I encourage you to take a look there, as showing these maps up on a screen is not necessarily the best way to view it, but just to give you an overview of what they look like. So let's move on to pavement. This report uses the 1 through 10 surface score rating scale developed by NYSDOT, which is shown on the right. That rating scale is 9 through 10 are excellent, 7 and 8 are good, 6 is fair, and 1 through 5 is poor. Additionally, some roads are given a rating of not rated, and it's usually due to construction or the material type. Included in this report are all federal aid eligible roads owned by the City of Syracuse, Onondaga County, Madison and Oswego counties for the portions which are in the MPA, and then local towns and villages. Additionally, all City of Syracuse roads were rated last year as part of a separate effort, and that process is documented in the appendix of this report. So one thing you might have noticed that is missing, and it's an important thing to note about this report, is that it does not include NYSDOT ratings. Statewide, there's a new type of pavement rating effort occurring to meet federal performance measures, which is causing some delays. This data was not provided to the SMTC at the time of this report, so the most recent NYSDOT ratings which are available are from 2017, which are actually featured in last year's report. So one of the side effects of not including the NYSDOT ratings is that we are not able to provide MPA-wide statistics, but we did include information for each road owner. Here we show the weighted average ratings for FAE roads for the city of Syracuse, which is 6.6, Onondaga County, 7.6, Madison County, 7.3, Oswego County, 7.0, and then towns and villages for 6.5. On the left is a screenshot from the report. Again, check out the actual document to see them a little better. And here's a little bit of a zoomed in area to help you see it a little bit more. Also included, we have the actual percentages of excellent, good, fair, and poor roads by road owner in the MPA. And I'm not going to go through them all, but you can refer to the report for additional information. So an important part of the Bridge and Paving Report is how we stack up against federal performance measures and the targets we adopted, which were created by the state. This is also important for our long-range transportation plan. Bridges are pretty straightforward, with two performance measures: the percent of the national highway system, that's NHS bridges, by deck area in good condition, and then the same in poor condition. The chart on the left shows the NYSDOT baseline data for these metrics for 2018 and 2019, and then the same for the MPA. Also shown are our 2- and 4-year targets for these measures. Pavement is a little bit more difficult. You see on the right 4 measures: percent of interstate pavements in good condition and in poor condition, and then the percent of non-interstate NHS pavements in good condition and poor condition. The issue here is that these good and poor ratings are not the same as the good and poor we currently use in our rating process. They are based on a combination of metrics, similar to the bridge ratings. The problem is, collecting this information requires highly specialized and expensive equipment, so NYSDOT is leading this data collection effort statewide, and we anticipate that they will eventually share this data with the MPOs. This changeover is one of the reasons for the delay in data that I mentioned earlier. Since, at the time of this report, we were not provided access to this data, we filled in our MPA values in this document and in the LRTP by using our existing rating scale. We also used 2017 and 2018 data, as this was the most recent complete data set that we had access to. Shown here, we are calling good scores as 7 through 10 on the surface score scale, and poor as scores 1 through 5. We know that this is not ideal, but we hope to adjust this process in the future as data becomes available. So, in conclusion, this report helps keep an accurate spatial and tabular data set that is easily accessible. It shows comparisons to federal performance measures. Keeping track of this type of asset data is important. We spend a majority of our TIP funds on bridges and pavements, so we should be able to show their conditions easily. Having this kind of data on hand can also prioritize the proper investment of funds in the appropriate projects, which I will actually get into an example of in a later presentation. At this point, I will happily take any questions that you may have, and you are also welcome to contact me anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that. I just want to reiterate the point that Andrew made in that presentation, which is the fact that we are missing New York State DOT pavement condition ratings still. And that is a significant hole since they have such a significant infrastructure component in the SMTC area. And I have been ringing that bell with Albany and the New York State DOT officials there to no avail. And until we get that data set from New York State DOT, we will continue this report, but it becomes a lot less meaningful without New York State DOT's data as a main component to it. So I want to make sure everyone's aware of that. We SMTC collect the federal aid information for the city and the county, so we can control that, but we do not for the state.
Thanks, Jim. Any other comments or questions on this one?
I just have one question. This is Casey. So it looks like the kind of goal for our bridges is actually to allow an increase in the percentage of bridges that are in poor condition, from I think roughly 10% to 11%. I mean, is there a reason why? Is it just the cost of maintaining bridges is so high, or?
Hey Casey, this is Andrew. So the performance measures that we have adopted as the SMTC are actually the same as the statewide performance measures. So when those came out, I think possibly last year, we had the option of creating our own or adopting what the state has. So I would probably turn that question over to State DOT to really answer that more completely, but I would be willing to bet that you're probably on the right track with that.
It looks like the state baseline is 10.6%, and we're looking at a 4-year target of 11.7%, unless the state baseline increased to 11.7.
Yes, as it stands now, the percentages that they came up with for these targets that were required by FHWA to come up with and then to share with the NPOs. That's what they've suggested. So I don't know the policy decisions behind that. I just know that we as SMTC, as the NPO, have agreed to support those targets, and then we're going to try and meet those as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Andrew, if I could just add in this, Mark, that we certainly would love to have a goal where there was 0% for bridges. But when they came out with some of the goal, it was done more from a statewide perspective than just an individual MPOs. And so I believe that 11.7% is more a reflection of what's going on across the state.
Mostly from, I would take it a financial standpoint, that the cost of maintaining these bridges in good condition is fairly high, and it's kind of a practical decision, I guess, in terms of budgetary constraints.
Yeah,
correct?
Trying to stretch the dollar as much as possible. That's true.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this one? Okay, thanks everyone. I'll take a motion on the bridge and pavement condition management system report.
Please.
Please.
This is Mark. I'll recommend it.
Can I get a second from someone?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any no's? Hearing none, the motion has passed. All right, moving on to the City of Syracuse pavement prioritization.
And this is a closely related item, but a little bit more detail-oriented. The City of Syracuse came to us, I don't even remember when, a while back, and asked for some assistance in helping them prioritize their which roads should be paved in a priority order so that they could stretch their limited pavement money as far as possible. So we, SMTC, had some staff look at it and come up with some methodologies that we hoped would be useful and provided them to the city. They, I guess at the end, they'll tell us if it was useful to them or not. I'll leave that up to Corey and company to fill that in at the end. But Andrew Fraser will give a presentation of what we did to assist the city.
Hey everyone, Andrew Fraser here again with a short overview of the City of Syracuse's pavement prioritization pilot, which the SMTC helped develop. The result of this project was a tech memo which we sent to the city back in February. So, as you may recall, last summer we collected pavement ratings on the entirety of the city's road system for the first time. So one of the questions which was asked was, what do we do with all this new information? And the biggest takeaway from that was, how can we use this to prioritize the maintenance on our system? So, it's no secret that the city has a limited pavement maintenance budget. Knowing this, how can decisions be made to use the funds in that budget as best as possible? And, additionally, what data, besides pavement data, can we use to help improve decision making? The SMTC was tasked with coming up with a prioritization model to help make these decisions. One thing to note early on, there are several different ways that one could develop a system to show prioritization of pavement maintenance. What the SMTC developed is just one of probably countless ways to go about it. So let's get started. In order to develop our model, we had to consider what types of variables that should go into it. After a number of discussions with the city, we chose these: pavement condition, collected by the SMTC, average annual daily traffic, or AADT, functional classification, prior maintenance on a segment, emergency snow routes, planned future maintenance on a segment, proximity to major institutions, the number of water main breaks, planned reconstruction of a segment, and then the road type. The first step was to filter out roads which would not be considered for prioritization. To do this, we removed from further analysis roads which met some criteria. Pavement conditions of good or excellent were not considered. Roads with any planned immediate maintenance or reconstruction were also removed. Additionally, we only considered improved curbed streets. Unimproved streets have their own separate maintenance program and are regularly resealed. So, with the roads that remained, we assigned a weight to certain categories of attributes. This extensive process is documented in the tech memo, and I won't get into details here in the interest of time, but I will give a few examples. Let's use AADT. Corridors which have higher traffic volumes are more likely to be traveled frequently by the public. Assigning these heavily traveled corridors a higher weight helps ensure a better use of city resources by spending limited reconstruction dollars on popular travel corridors. Therefore, roads with a higher AADT were weighted more than those with lower traffic volumes. Another example is snow emergency routes. Roads considered snow emergency routes are of critical importance to the road network, either for the traveling public or for emergency services. As such, it is reasonable to attest that these roads should be maintained in a state of good repair. Emergency snow routes were weighted differently than those which were not. Now we move down to scoring the roads on the network. This was done on the block level. Originally, the maximum score a road could receive was 30. We also added an additional weight using functional classification to help local roads, so that the city had a solid mix of larger arterials and neighborhood streets to choose from. The priority scores we calculated ranged from 8.4 to 26.4, and we then categorized these by percentile. This chart shows those breakdowns. We decided to focus on scores which fell above the 75th percentile. Using this information, we could say that blocks with a priority score above 18 would be considered reasonable and justified candidates for reconstruction. Again, these are not the only potential candidates. The SMTC's methodology is only one of several different options. So, this is great for blocks, which would be considered priorities. But it wouldn't make sense for the city to pave one block of a road and then move on to a totally different block. That's what we mean by economies of scale. To address this, we came up with the weighted average priority score. This was done to give the city a general idea of the overall priority of a road or road segment, not just a block. These segments were calculated based on federal aid eligibility. On FAE roads, we use segments based on our Syracuse Count program. Think of those larger roads across the city, the James Streets, the Teal Aves, etc. It wouldn't make sense to suggest that entire road, and these count program segments are smaller, more manageable chunks. For non-FAE roads, we considered a road overall. These roads are generally shorter on their own and could potentially be paved end-to-end reasonably. The weighted average priority score for a segment, shown as P-bar in the equation on the screen, is calculated by summing the product of each priority score and length along each block, and then dividing the sum by the appropriate block lengths. So in terms of deliverables which we provided to the city, we gave a list of blocks which fell above the 75th percentile score, which was 18, and then all street segments ordered by the weighted average priority score. And we also gave maps of the city with these metrics indicated. So that's a quick overview of the process, and I will gladly take questions now or at another time. Feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
This was
Any questions? Oh, sorry.
Just want to say this was a technical effort, a technical memorandum for the city that we're informing on. There was no formal action required by this committee, so there was no vote required. This is just informing everybody that what staff has been doing for the city at the city's request. I would like to know if the city found this helpful in prioritizing their paving program at all.
Yeah, so this was very helpful for us this season in determining our reconstruction efforts. You know, there's obviously a lot of back-end work here that went into this. In the absence of the city instituting a full-on pavement management system, which has its limitations and also has a lot of inputs that would be required that we might not be able to put in right now. This is a really useful effort on behalf of SMTC staff. Absolutely helped us choose and have good reasoning for the roads that we're choosing, which is part of this. We want to be a little bit more transparent, take out a lot of the guesswork that the general public may assume is going on. And this was, again, very useful to us. And if Corey wants to share any different points, I'll let her.
Oh, Neil, I think you said it all. Yeah, we just really appreciate the partnership with SMTC to try and make our approach more data-driven and consistent.
Good. We can continue to do this in future years if the city would like us to. You just have to make sure to put that request in a timely manner. Okay.
Will do.
Yeah, no worries there.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Corey and Neil. Appreciate it. Happy to do it. Happy you guys got some use out of it for sure.
Sounds good. Thanks. All right. If nobody has any more questions, we'll move on to City of Syracuse sidewalk assessment.
Yeah, this is a very similar item in the sense that the city asked us to help them come up with a way to help sidewalk maintenance prioritization similarly to the road. And Aaron McKeon worked with the city on coming up with this. He has a brief presentation about what we were able to put together for them related to this topic.
Hello, my name is Aaron McKeon, and I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the sidewalk maintenance prioritization analysis that we conducted on behalf of the City of Syracuse earlier this year. The city requested this analysis as part of its exploration of the idea of taking over responsibility for sidewalk maintenance on all city streets. Currently, adjacent property owners are responsible for snow clearing, periodic sidewalk replacement, and keeping sidewalks clear of vegetation. I want to note that I am just the spokesperson for a larger project team that included Mario Colon, Megan Vitale, Jason Deshays, and Andrew Frazier. Jason and Andrew especially did a lot of work on this. They did the GIS work and the quantitative analysis that makes up the bulk of what I'm about to show you. All right, so how do you prioritize the nearly 600 miles of sidewalk in the city? Clearly, some streets are main streets or major streets that connect neighborhoods. In other words, if you have to walk from your neighborhood to downtown Syracuse, there are only a handful of direct routes that let you do that. And a lot of that is captured in the functional class system pictured to the right that specifies which streets are arterials, which are collectors, and which are local neighborhood streets. And in many cases, the arterials and collectors that are near neighborhood facilities and that are walkable are already part of the city's sidewalk snow removal pilot. But after you take those major streets out of the equation, you have to ask, what makes the local neighborhood streets different from one another? Well, one way to think about that is to ask, are there places where people need sidewalks more than others? One solution to that question goes back to something we developed several years ago, the pedestrian demand model. That's also pictured to the right. This assigns a weight to every sidewalk in the city based on the degree to which people would want to walk there, which is based on a combination of land use and demographic information. That model doesn't take traffic volume into account, and studies have shown that busier streets are more dangerous for pedestrians, and even a small increase in traffic volume can be more dangerous. So we wanted to take that into consideration, and also we knew, as I've said, that we had already done an exercise similar to this to figure out which streets should be prioritized for snow removal. So those corridors were selected again because they were important, and we wanted to make sure they continued to be considered high priority corridors. We assigned these inputs various weights to generate a priority score for every segment of sidewalk in the city. As you can see, the sidewalk snow removal corridors are weighted in such a way as to ensure that they are always some of the highest scoring streets and sidewalk segments in the city. So what do the priority scores give us? Well, what you end up with is a very objective quantitative methodology that says when you have a highly walkable land use pattern and demographic characteristics that suggest lots of people who need to get around on foot every day, you should prioritize sidewalk maintenance in those areas. In this example, the near west side gets relatively high scores in the 5 and 6 range because it has more households without vehicles, more senior housing, busier transit stops. It's got medical offices in the neighborhood, and you can see a pattern of pedestrian vehicle crashes in that neighborhood as well. And all of those are elements in the pedestrian demand score. One missing piece in this decision-making structure is sidewalk quality data. One clear priority is to invest in the worst quality sidewalks on the highest scoring segments first, but we don't have parcel level data on where the sidewalks are in good or bad condition. Our interns spent this summer collecting very detailed sidewalk quality data for a few city neighborhoods. Once this quality data is complete, the city can use the priority score and other data to allocate resources to sidewalk maintenance. The ultimate decision-making structure can use priority score, a mix of functional classes like main streets and local streets, and city quadrants, which is all included in a sidewalk database. With the data we had, we could not create a master list of sidewalks that needed to be repaired in, say, year 1 or year 2, etc. But we did develop an objective, rational system for prioritizing how repairs and replacements can be done. Essentially, that'll be by taking a quality score for sidewalks, combining it with the priority score, and coming up with a, if you will, a master score that would be applied on whatever mix of sidewalks the city is interested in. It could be by quadrant, could be on a mix of local and federally aid eligible streets.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Again, related to that effort that Aaron is talking about, we have the data collection effort that has gone on all summer long for collecting sidewalk data as a pilot project for the city of Syracuse to see if that's something we should continue doing in future years in mass. We had anywhere from 2 to 3 people out there at a time doing it, and we were able to cover several city neighborhoods, but to do the entire city is going to require a much larger lift than we were able to dedicate with our intern staff this summer.
Sounds good. All right, any questions from anybody else? All right, can I get a motion to?
Actually, that's a technical.
Oh, that one is too?
Oh, no, I do need a motion on that one. I apologize. So.
Right, all right.
I'll motion that.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, noes? Okay, hearing none, motion passed. All right, US Route 11 corridor study. Thank you, Megan.
Yes, this study was done at the request of SACWA.
Thank you.
Part of the 1920 UPWP, the SMTC completed, though it started a couple years earlier, the US 11 corridor study for the town of Cicero. It considered future land use and transportation systems made within the Route 11 corridor from Bear Road to Route 31. Megan Vitale put together a brief PowerPoint, which Mario will play for you right now.
This is Megan Vitale, Principal Planner with the SMTC, and I'll be talking about the work we recently completed on the US 11 corridor study. This study was conducted on behalf of the town of Cicero and the Syracuse Onondaga County Planning Agency to analyze future land use and transportation system needs in the Route 11 corridor between Bear Road and Route 31, with the goal of creating concepts to guide future development, with an emphasis on infill development, safety and multimodal mobility, and aesthetics. We held 3 study advisory committee meetings and presented the draft study recommendations to the Cicero Planning Board and the Cicero Town Board. Here you can see the study area, which is a state road. The southern portion of the corridor is 5 to 7 lanes wide, with 4 travel lanes in the northern part of the corridor. Pedestrian facilities are primarily located between Bear Road and the Target Walmart area. One of the challenges is the lack of opportunities to safely cross Route 11, especially in the northern portion of the study area. SMTC conducted counts in 2018 in the morning, afternoon, and Saturday midday peaks. All intersections currently operate at overall level of service C or better during all peak hours, except Bear Road, which operates at level of service D. Saturday volumes and travel patterns are similar to the PM peak. We can see that volumes are highest south of Cottenoy Road. Also, side street movements are higher during afternoons and also on Saturdays, when more people are going to and from the shopping areas. Our staff reviewed crash data from January 1st, 2013 to December 31st, 2017, and found a total of 997 crashes during that time. Crash rates are highest in the southern portion of the study corridor, and most crashes, 63%, occurred at intersections. The Study Advisory Committee provided input on the amount of development expected in and around the study corridor over the next 30 years. This scenario includes a total of over 3,000 new residential units, apartments and townhomes, 320,000 square feet of commercial development, 100 hotel rooms, and 250 industrial jobs. Our modeling also included 1,000 jobs at the White Pine Business Park in Clay. We used the travel demand model to estimate the traffic volume growth in the corridor based on the 2050 development scenario, then applied that growth rate to the existing intersection counts. We then used Centro to analyze these intersections. The model showed the largest percent change in traffic volumes between the target Walmart driveways and Route 31, but existing volumes are lower here. The model included a capacity increase at the 8131 interchange, and the growth scenario included a substantial number of new households within the study corridor, plus some job growth north of Route 31. This resulted in many of the new trips using the northern portion of the study corridor. With percent change in volumes shown here, we found that only 3 of the 10 intersections analyzed are expected to operate at an overall level of service E during at least one peak hour, though some individual movements may operate at an LOS F. All other intersections would operate at level of service D or better. Working with the SAC, we created 4 draft concept plans for the focus areas identified early on in the study. The desire was to create walkable town center style development nodes and provide travel options off of Route 11 with access management. This concept illustrates infill development behind the Wegmans, Sun Auto, and Walmart developments. It includes a mix of housing types, smaller scale retail, and a hotel, with development oriented to a town road network with sidewalks throughout. The concept for the area around the town hall shows a new access roadway that could make additional parcels attractive for development and a new road parallel to 81 connecting to development farther south. Additional sidewalks are shown on Route 11 with crosswalks. The concept also includes closure of the Crabtree Lane access at Route 31 to all but emergency vehicles. Some large parcels along Crabtree Lane may present development opportunity, but there are environmental constraints here. So the concept shows cluster development with sidewalks and a new trail to connect to Route 11. Finally, we developed an access management concept for Route 11 from Circle Drive to Stevens Drive. There are some existing cross-parcel connections already, shown in purple. Continuing to build out that internal road network as redevelopment occurs over time will help to reduce trips on Route 11. Also, limiting left turns, especially left turns exiting from plazas, and creating clearly defined driveways generally improves operations and safety. The concept plans created promote walkable infill development with good access management throughout the corridor. Feedback at the planning board and town board meetings was generally positive, although some residents expressed concern about additional traffic associated with any further development in the study area. Overall, the town will need to carefully consider these concepts with the public input in creating a vision for this area. Modifications to the zoning code would likely be needed to achieve the type of development shown in the concepts. This vision could be further developed through a new comprehensive plan with additional public involvement. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you. I would just like to start off the comments by offering a big thank you to Megan for undertaking this sort of bear of a study. It's a really complex corridor up there with a lot of traffic and land use conditions that made it interesting. We also had a transition of participants from beginning to end, which made it interesting as well. But I think it gave the town and the folks that have looked at it some really great information to chew on moving forward and really think about what their town wants to do or doesn't want to do, and gives them a lot of base information to have those discussions with moving forward. Even if they don't have those decisions made now, I think it gives them a lot of information to consider, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.
You're welcome. I can't take all the credit for it. You know, there's a team in our office working on it, and it's always good to have support from our member agencies and the municipalities when we're working on a study. So yeah, Cicero was definitely a willing and active participant, and I appreciate that as well. Yeah, we'd like to keep doing this moving forward. Obviously, we're moving down Route 11 down to Mattydale as our next project. So yeah, thank you for that too. Anybody else have any comments or questions on this one? Okay, can I get a motion? Can I make a motion?
Sure.
Okay, I'll make the motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Brian?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Noes? Can I get any noes?
Overall, the town will need to carefully consider.
All right, hearing none, motion approved. All right, so OCDOT safety assessment and analysis is next.
This is our last formal study to have to look at today. As part of this, the SMTC agreed to conduct a county roadway network screening of fatal and serious injury crashes for a 3-year period, and identify and summarize findings for hotspot locations, as well as identify high-risk road and systemic emphasis areas. Mike Alexander completed the study, and you have a presentation voiced by Andrew Frazier here, and then Mike is on for question and answer afterwards.
Hello, everyone. This is a presentation on the SMTC's 2020 Onondaga County Safety Assessment. The Onondaga County Safety Assessment was requested by the County Department of Transportation. The county wants to reduce fatal and serious injury crashes on their road network. The assessment identifies 92 focus areas and summarizes crash patterns at 12 hotspot locations. The study also identifies high-risk roads for systemic emphasis areas. Results will inform future decisions and support efforts to obtain safety funds. The county owns about 800 miles of road, 113 signalized intersections, and 289 unsignalized intersections that involve 2 county roads. Intersections with a state road were excluded from this study. The road network is divided into 722 segments for analysis purposes. Approximately 8,000 crashes occurred during a 3-year period. Of those, 22 were fatal crashes and 217 were serious injury crashes. So we asked the questions, where do these occur and do clusters exist? 87% of fatal and 67% of serious injury crashes occur on segments. Fatal crashes did not occur at signalized intersections, nor within 250 feet of one. But these intersections experienced 31 serious injury crashes. Unsignalized intersections experienced 2 fatal crashes and 17 serious injury crashes. We mapped these crash locations and found they are distributed across the network. No clear clusters exist. So we developed an approach to identify hotspots. First, we identified 92 focus areas. Focus intersections involved a fatal or serious injury crash. Focus segments involved a fatal crash or 2 or more serious injury crashes. Next, we sorted the focus areas into tiered categories based on the number of the following criteria that apply. We asked the questions, does the location involve a fatal crash, a fatal and a serious injury crash, 3 or more serious injury crashes for segments, or 2 or more for intersections? And also, is the location within the top 10 for the total number of crashes, the number of injury crashes, and the crash rate? Segments that met 4 criteria are deemed hotspots. Remaining segments are filtered into special mention categories of Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3. Likewise for intersections. This process identified 5 hotspot segments and 7 hotspot intersections. Segments included Henry Clay from Taft to Buckley, Hinsdale from Genesee to Milton, Old Liverpool Road from Buckley to Beechwood, West Genesee from Hinsdale to 173, West Genesee from 173 to Westland. The intersections included, and these are all signalized, Milton and Hinsdale, Morgan and Buckley, Morgan and Wetzel, Route 57 and John Glenn, Route 57 and Long Branch, South Bay and Thompson, and West Taft and Buckley. We summarized applicable crash attributes for each hotspot. Summary information shows crash locations, roadway features, collision type, apparent factors, and lighting, weather, and road surface conditions. A summary narrative accompanies each graphic in the report. Field observations are also summarized. A similar summary was prepared for each intersection. Consistent with the state's Strategic Highway Safety Plan, this study also analyzed systemic emphasis areas. A systemic assessment is different than a hotspot assessment. It identifies high-risk roads for each category. Systemic safety improvements are widely implemented at target high-risk roadways correlated with particular crash types rather than crash frequency. The county's most common emphasis areas include lane departures, intersections, and age-related crashes. Speed, vulnerable users, and driver behavior categories occurred, but not as frequently. We also learned that nearly 70% of all fatal crashes involved a lane departure. Next, we sorted roads by functional class, number of lanes, and speed, and calculated fatal and serious injury crash rates per mile for each emphasis area and each road category. Road categories with rates at least twice the total emphasis area's rate are deemed high-risk roads for that emphasis area. For example, as shown in the map, lane departures tend to occur on rural 2-lane low-speed collectors, urban 2-lane low and high-speed arterials, urban 4-lane low and medium-speed arterials, and urban 4-lane high-speed collectors. The state has currently developed a lane departure action plan. Should competitive funds be made available for systemic improvements, like with the Pedestrian Safety Action Plan, the county is well positioned to apply and attach study materials showing high-risk roads. This puts the county at a competitive advantage. We've prepared maps that show high-risk roads for each emphasis area in support of such efforts. Hotspot and high-risk road findings will inform future design and engineering decisions and support efforts to solicit safety funds. We are also currently undertaking a similar assessment for city roads and will complete that effort this program year. At this point, I welcome any questions or comments.
Thank you, Andrew.
Any comments or questions?
I guess my only question, oh, I'm sorry, this is Casey. So for County DOT, how is this information going to be utilized? Are we going to be incorporating this into our paver or, you know, our highway plan?
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to digest. There's a lot of information to digest here. We were pleased with some of the results, but we're certainly going to digest the document, and our work plan will take into consideration, you know, where we can make improvements and how we can apply possibly for future federal funding to make some improvements. So we need to get into the guts of the accident analysis, look at the actual accidents, and get into you know, what can be done to improve some of these areas and some of these segments of roadways.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Anybody else?
And I just did, Chris Robert, again, just wanted to say I appreciate SMTC's help with this. This was a big data crunch, and it was very helpful to get a document like this where we can look at our overall corridor and be able to make some educated decisions about where to spend funds, whether it be local or federal, to make safety improvements.
Great. Glad it was useful.
Okay. If I don't hear anything else, I'll take a motion.
First that.
Okay. Second?
I'll move it. Yep.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any nays? Hearing none, that motion has passed. And on behalf of all of the requesting agencies, I want to say a big thank you to the SMTC staff for undertaking all of these projects.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry it was so much in one meeting, but we didn't have a regular meeting in the early spring like we were supposed to, so things kind of got backlogged, and the agenda today got longer than it should have been.
Okay. Thanks for presenting them all so briefly and succinctly. Appreciate that. All right, moving on to last item under new business, election of officers.
Yep, periodically we have to elect officers to our various committees, the executive, the planning, and the policy committee. Terms last 2 years. Up now is planning committee. Right now, current chair is Mary Robeson, and the vice chair is Megan Costa. They have agreed to continue as long as they can flip it. So Megan Costa will go on and be the chair for the next 2 years, and Mary Robeson will step down to be vice chair for the following 2 years for the planning committee, if you folks agree with that.
I'll move that.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? All right, thanks everybody.
Before everyone gets up, I just want to remind you that the policy committee meeting, virtual policy committee meeting is scheduled for September 23rd. Same format, it'll be basically the same agenda, but for actual approval of all these documents that you've seen today. So if you're unlucky enough to be on both committees, you get to watch it twice. My apologies.
All right, public comment?
Oh yeah, Andrew, were you able to get the live stream up, and do we have any ability for public comment?
Yes, we did. After a little bit of delay, we did get a live stream up and running. So we'll be able to definitely make sure that works properly for the policy committee, but there was no public comment. But as anybody might be watching, I was invited to email us at contactus@smtcmpo.org, and we'll respond to you as well.
All right, great. Thank you very much. All right.
Good. All right. It's time to adjourn. A motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
I assume
Aye.
there's no nays. Any nays? All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
See you later.
Aye.